The 23rd, and we're continuing our journey through the Gospel of Mark, and we're in chapter 6, and we're reading from verses 30 to 56. Now, we see here this is a follow-on from the story of the execution of John the Baptist. In Matthew's account of this time in Jesus' ministry, he has Jesus hearing the news about John the Baptist and then going off into a desert place to be alone. Mark doesn't make the same connection, but it does seem very likely that Jesus and his disciples are wanting to take some time to take in the impact of what has happened to John the Baptist. And so Jesus is also concerned for them that they've been working hard, they've been out there ministering, carrying his word, carrying his message, seeing people healed, and they have been suffering the same pressure of the crowds as he has been. And so he encourages them to go aside, to go away, and to go to have a retreat with him. However, the crowds hear where he's going, and so they make their way out to him. Now just picture this. Again, I think we talked about this in Matthew chapter 14, but just picture this, that here is Jesus with his disciples who've just heard this terrible news about the violence and the death of John the Baptist, and their hearts will have been hurt, but the crowds are coming and they just want more. They want Jesus, they want his ministry. But there's something very key here in this reading, that Jesus had compassion on the crowds. He saw them like sheep without a shepherd. His concern was for them. And remember, this word compassion again is not just sympathy, it's actually deep, visceral, stomach churning concern, empathy. He senses their loss and he wants to be with them. And then they realize that they're in a very lonely place, a solitary place, and there's not a shop for miles around, there's no marketplace. And so the disciples suggest that it would be worth sending the people away because it's a difficult place to be in. But Jesus says, no, we'll give them something to eat. What have we got? And it turns out that they have 7 loaves and a couple of fishes, a few loaves and fishes. And so Jesus organizes everybody. It's interesting how organized they are, and sits them down in groups, which the Greek version of Mark calls symposia. And they sit down on the grass, and they're ordered in 50s, which actually harks back a little bit to the Moses organization of the people in order to minister to them, that he had the people of Israel organized into 50s. So there is this connecting back to the story of Israel again that happens here. And so Jesus takes the loaves and the fishes, blesses them, and everyone is fed. All of these thousands of people are fed. Not only that, but they take up 12 basketfuls of crumbs. And remember the number 12 linked to the 12 tribes of Israel. That's a very symbolic number as well. There's something Jesus is doing here in bringing in the kingdom, which is still part of the continuation of the story of God's people. And then Jesus encourages the disciples to get into a boat and to go ahead of him to Bethsaida. And this is quite key, this is quite important, because it's only in just one little verse here. There's just a verse in verse 46 that says that Jesus then dismisses the crowds. He sends the crowds away, but Jesus goes up the mountain to pray. And just as in Mark 1:35, here again in Mark 6, we see Jesus making a point, making time without his apprentices, without the people around him. He makes time to go and be with his Father. This is an important, a key time for him, one that he pursues, one that he makes a priority. But then as he comes down to the shore, he can see that his friends are having trouble on the lake. They've not got very far, the wind's against them. And whether it's coming out of the powerful encounter and out of the glory that he's encountered with his Father, or whether it's just Jesus walking in his own power and walking in his authority, he comes walking to them on the lake. And there's just quite a comic moment here where it looks like Jesus is going to walk past them and they think they're seeing a ghost. But then Jesus cries out to them, "Don't be afraid, it's me." And he comes to them in the boat, and they get to the other side and the wind drops. Now it says something interesting in verse 52 here. It says that they hadn't understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hard. There was something even in what they'd seen. They had seen a great miracle happen, but it hadn't clicked with them that Jesus has this power over nature. He has this authority over the natural world. And so they have to experience again his presence. And it's so easy for us to harden our hearts. It's so easy for us to move back, to stand back from Jesus' ability to intervene. And so they reach the other side, and again, crowds come. They're bringing people on stretchers. They're bringing people, they just want to touch the edge of his garment. They just want to touch his clothing, and many are healed. We can see here the amazing pressure that is on Jesus and his apprentices, but remember, Jesus' compassion. Jesus always heals, not for show, not for spectacle, not like a circus. He's healing out of this deep, visceral compassion that he feels, and that he still feels for every man, woman and child who lives, for whom he's given his life. Have a very good February the 23rd.